Hello, welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. I have some exciting news. Stories for Wonderful Children received its 100,000th download this week. Thank you so much to everyone who has been a listener and who has enjoyed all these stories. Your listening and your feedback is what has made all of this fun to produce. I hope you're enjoying the story of Myra and the online school for adventuring. On with the next episode. 3 weeks remained until graduation, and Myra was feeling in a rather scientific mood. Despite their best efforts, she and the other sneakers had been unable to locate any other buildings on campus with imprisonment ruins like the library and the cafeteria had. Chelsea and Antoine were convinced that the other ruins had to be on the clock tower and that they were just very well hidden. Myra was not quite so sure. She was sitting and talking to Tweety and to Corrin and saying, "Look, we've got to test it. If George is time, then we just have to feed him a cinnamon roll, and he'll transform into time, and then we'll know." "Yeah," said Tweety, "but at that point the administrator will also know that someone is up to something, like one of the Fates getting a cinnamon roll. That's just coincidence or bad luck. 2 of them, and he's going to be hunting hard for us." "Yeah," said Myra. "But what if we feed one to George and to the librarian and to Cook all at the same time, and it turns out one of them isn't? Then he's really going to be hunting for us. No, we just need some way to make it look like an accident." "A cinnamon roll accidentally finding its way into the clock tower?" asked Tweety. "Yes," said Myra. "We need to be sneaky about it. That's what we're here for, right?" Corrin said, "Not me. I'm here to learn how to fight." Myra punched him in the arm hard. "Ow," he said. "I thought you were here to fight." "I'm trying to toughen you up," said Myra. Corrin just looked at her with an eyebrow raised. "Actually," he said, "has it occurred to you that maybe the cinnamon rolls don't work?" "What do you mean?" said Myra. "Well," said Corrin, "do you really think Cook has never eaten one of her own cinnamon rolls?" Said Myra. "Actually, I'm pretty sure I remember her taste testing them." "Well," said Corrin, maybe the cinnamon rolls only work on the librarian." "So what?" said Myra. "We need to give Cook a book from the library and give the librarian a cinnamon roll, and then what does time get?" "Maybe," said Tweety, "like they each need a different thing. Like you have to give something from time to Cook. You have to give the cinnamon roll from Cook to the librarian. You have to give a book or something from the librarian to time." Myra put her head in her hands. "My head hurts," she said. "This is ridiculous. Why are we doing this anyway? Why isn't somebody else doing this?" Tweety shrugged. "Just lucky, I guess." Said Myra. "Besides," she said, "we still haven't figured out how to actually destroy those runes so that they can get out once we've allowed them to remember who they are." "Yeah," said Corrin. "I've been thinking about that." "Yeah?" said Myra. "And what's your idea?" "Well," said Corrin, "we went all that trouble to get those shears, right?" "Oh," said Myra. "See," she said, turning to Tweety, "this is why I keep him around." "Uh-huh," said Tweety. "Was that it? I thought it was because you liked the look of his—" "Hey," said Myra, "none of that." No," said Corrin. "I'm interested. What were you going to say?" "Tweety was not going to say anything," said Myra. "Tweety is leaving now."
No, wait, what was Tweety gonna say?
I am I'm leaving now, said Tweety. Yes, said Myra. You're going to go get the shears from wherever you've hidden them in our room so that we can conduct a little experiment. Oh, said Tweety. Is that what I was going to do? All right. And Tweety got up and headed back towards the rooms. Corrin said, so, and Myra said, no. Corrin just sighed. All right, said Myra. In this idea of yours, feeding a cinnamon roll at a time wouldn't do anything anyway. Yeah, said Corrin. So maybe we need to really hedge our bets and give George a cinnamon roll and a book. Wait, said Myra. We can't be the ones to give George a cinnamon roll and a book. We have to arrange for somebody else to do it. Myra said, I mean, George gets meals delivered, right? So what if a cinnamon roll just happens to find its way into his meal? What about the book? Said Corrin. Well, he's got to be filling that library from somewhere. We just make sure that, we'll just sneak a book into his library. He'll probably notice it, he'll pick it up and read it, and boom, he's time, everybody's happy, we scratch the ruins with the shears, and then... Yeah, said Corrin. And then what? I'm not actually entirely sure, said Myra. But it's got to be better, right? Does it? Said Corrin. I hope so, said Myra. Corrin said, I think you're right, though, Myra. I think that we've got to find a way to test before we actually go forward with any plans. All right, said Myra. Let's start now. And so, as she said it, Tweety arrived back carrying the shears. Myra said, come on. What? Said Tweety. We're going to go mess up our rune, said Myra. They headed down the hill to the cafeteria, and when they got there, Corrin headed inside to make sure no one was looking at the door, while Tweety hung around out front looking to make sure no one was headed into the cafeteria, which was unlikely but possible in the middle of the afternoon. Myra repeated her trick from the other day. She leaned with her back up against the doorway and casually reached up with the shears and drew it down the door frame above her head, and then swiftly repocketed the shears. She did not turn to look until she had walked back out and was standing next to Tweety, and then looked back over Tweety's shoulder at the door frame. The rune was not just scratched, it simply was no longer there. Myra felt elated. She nodded to Tweety, and they walked back together up the hill. So it worked, said Tweety. It worked, said Myra. If we can figure out the rest of it, we've got a way to get rid of those imprisonment runes. That, said Tweety, is a very good step. Now, said Myra, if you could just have a really convenient dream to help us sort all this out. I don't know what to tell you, said Tweety. Whatever happened when I initially swallowed that stone that you found in the temple, it hasn't happened again. It's still inside. It's still inside, Tweety.
I forgot. Like months later, Tweety keeps like diamonds every 6 months. That's cute. So it's gonna be like a gem inside of a diamond.
Something like that. Well, said Myra, I'm going to go find Chelsea and Antoine and tell them the good news. Right, said Tweety. Well, I've got to study for my advanced botany class. Advanced botany? Said Myra. When did you start taking that? I've been taking that, said Tweety. It's a really easy class, and so we never have to talk about it. Why are you studying for it now? Asked Myra. Tweety shrugged. Finals coming up. True, said Myra. All right, I'll catch you later. And that's where we're going to end for tonight. Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's show, but questions and commentary were supplied by my children. The theme music was written by Brandon Thompson, and our wonderful logo was designed by Silas Wendelin. If you're enjoying the show, please tell someone about it, and leave a review with your podcast provider. You can now subscribe to the show to get extra stories and longer chapters of Myra and the Online School that combine multiple segments into a longer episode. The show's website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.buzzsprout.com. Until next time, I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.